It is a sunny morning as a beaming and happily married bride and groom walk out to greet the cheers of their well-wishers. As the narrator states, it is the one day that should be perfect. But alas, some things do not go exactly as planned. We witness a comic scene where the bride takes a stumble multiple times, as the narrator contradicts the events and spells out an alternate scenario where she blames the gloomy weather or a drunk uncle embarrassing himself. The initially sunny scene shifts to a horrifying nightmare as the bride screams in frustration. Back in the present, Sandy, who we learn is the narrator talking about her unfortunate wedding, concludes her story, shrugging as she accepts that it was an absolute disaster. She is discussing a possible wedding do-over with the wedding planner, Abby, at Redo I Do. At the office, Taylor receives another mysterious flower delivery brought in by Kyle. They have been receiving one a month for a whole year, and still have no idea who has been sending them. Kyle claims to be as clueless as Taylor as the phone rings at her desk. He takes his leave as Taylor receives a request from Carmen for a potential schedule. Meanwhile, Abby confirms all the details with Sandy till their next meeting. She catches sight of the beautiful flowers sent by the secret admirer at Taylor's desk and wonders who sent them. Perhaps it is just one of the many happy brides she has worked with. Abby mentions she's going out of town for her cousin Emily's wedding, relieved it will be quite easy since Emily and she are related, and Emily is handling everything for the most part. At the same time, Abby receives a call from Emily in total panic, confirming that Abby will be there with her on the designated day to see that everything goes smoothly. Emily and Dan haven't had time to have a real wedding, and Abby's help means a lot to both of them. Emily asks if Abby will be fine with seeing Peter after such a long time. Abby shrugs it off, but as she hangs up, she loses some of her usual spark. Perhaps she won't be fine after all. We are then introduced to Peter, a carpenter by profession, who owns a shop by the name of Custom Woodcraft. He is discussing his brother Dan's and Emily's upcoming wedding, explaining to his colleague why the two opted for another wedding. At the same time, Dan walks in, greeting the two. He immediately addresses the elephant in the room, whether Peter will be okay with seeing Abby after 3 years. He did not exactly leave on good terms. Peter, like Abby, gives a blunt response. Of course he will be fine. Abby is dazed in her office as Taylor brings over details from Sandy's previous wedding. She notices something is off. Abby admits that she hasn't been home in a very long time, and has yet to come to terms with a messy breakup with her ex-boyfriend, who also happens to be Dan's brother. She brushes it off quickly, and hands Taylor the responsibility of handling the technicalities of Sandy's do-over wedding while she is away for the week. As an excited Taylor leaves the room, Abby pulls up a photo of her and Peter, gazing at it longingly. Looks like she needs to come to terms with this messy breakup pretty soon. As the day of Emily and Dan's wedding approaches, Abby drives off to her hometown, reminiscing about the memories she has associated with this place. She pulls up in front of the bakery where her friend Bonnie works, and walks into an elated Bonnie, who pulls her into a hug. The two exchange pleasantries, and Bonnie heads to the back to fetch a cheddar sourdough, Abby's personal favorite. She recommends that Abby try her new boysenberry spread at the counter. Abby does so, and is in the process of spreading a generous serving of the spread on a piece of bread as Peter walks into the bakery. He startles Abby by calling out her name, and causes her to smear the spread all over the front of her dress. A flustered Abby greets Peter as she clumsily tries to wipe the spread off her dress in vain. It will probably leave a stain forever. The two share a very awkward conversation. Abby is as embarrassed as she can be, as Bonnie hands her her package with her total. She hurriedly pays and scrambles out of the bakery, earning the disapproving looks of Peter's mother, who conveniently happens to accompany him. Peter looks over his shoulder as Abby gets into her car, an expression of longing on his face. Abby arrives at her parents' home, running to hug her dad, who has found a new gardening hobby thanks to her mom's new healthy lifestyle business. The two are elated to have her back home. As Abby heads into the house with her luggage, she hands her mom the fresh cheddar sourdough, and tells her how she ran into Peter during one of the most mortifying moments ever. But she is glad, since she won't have to deal with him again during her stay. That is when her mom tells her that Peter is paying for the entire wedding, so she may have a tad bit of difficulty avoiding him. Abby is speechless. Cut to the next scene, Abby arrives at Emily and Dan's place, all ready to go over the details of their wedding with them. This is when Emily drops a bunch of surprise bombs on Abby. She didn't tell Abby that Peter would be financing the wedding earlier, since she was worried that Abby may not want to do it if she had known that Peter was involved. Plus, Emily may not be able to go over the final wedding plans with Abby since she has to pull double shifts at the hospital. But Peter would be happy to help Abby out with the preparations. Abby laughs nervously and then tells Emily that won't be a problem, since she will easily manage everything, and she does not need his help. Emily gives in and agrees to give the news to Peter to stay out of the arrangements. Back home, Abby catches up on work on the phone with Taylor. She hustles to clear up her messy room and hang her clothes in the closet. She pauses as she catches sight of a wedding dress hanging in the closet. Perhaps it doesn't bring back great memories. A sharp tap on her bedroom window makes her snap out of it, and she tells Taylor that she will call her back. As she whips her curtains aside, to her surprise, SJE sees Peter standing in her garden. He asks if they can talk for a minute, and she agrees to come downstairs. Peter compliments the flowers in her garden, courtesy of her dad's hard work, and jumps straight to the point. He wants to know why Abby does not want to work with him. He wants to know why she is so bugged out, since he is the one who left her at the altar 3 years ago. A messy breakup indeed. Abby brushes it off, not wanting to have this conversation with him. Peter continues to tell her that he gave Dan and Emily his word that he would give them the best wedding ever, so he would appreciate it if the two can work together as professionals. Abby holds her head high, claiming confidently that she can handle it, since she is the professional here, and they successfully come to a curt agreement. On the other end, things seem to be the opposite for Dan and Emily. The two debate on the dinner menu for the night, and cannot seem to come to a conclusion on which they both agree. Perhaps things are starting to get rocky for the pair. The next day, Abby wakes up to her ringing phone. It is a call from Peter, telling her that they need to have an early morning meeting to go over the final wedding plans. While she contemplates, her mom walks in to tell her that she has made some healthy muffins for Abby. As she walks out, Abby's dad gags on the muffin in his hand, and she agrees to meet Peter at Bonnie's. The bakery's waffles suddenly sound a lot better than her mom's healthy muffins. Back at Redo I Do, Sandy tells Taylor that she does not want to recapture anything from her previous wedding, since it was such an utter disaster. She asks Taylor if Abby can start over. Taylor guards her surprise and assures Sandy that her wedding do-over will be beyond perfect. Meanwhile, Peter waits at the bakery for Abby, who nervously walks in. Bonnie takes their orders, having memorized their usual orders from all those years ago. At least some things have remained the same. The two exchange small smiles as Bonnie heads over to the kitchen to start their breakfast. While they wait, Abby and Peter exchange small talk. Abby prompts them to get down to business. As they discuss the technicalities of Emily and Dan's wedding, Peter recalls how Abby wanted some similar things when they were getting married. Abby does not want to get into that anymore, and suggests that Peter just give her his credit card, since all this may be too boring for him. Peter denies it, reminding her that he promised Emily and Dan that he would see this through to the end. Abby shrugs, admitting that he may probably need to come along, since she needs to take photos of his mom's backyard, which is where the wedding is supposed to take place. Bonnie arrives with their breakfast, and Peter smiles as Abby stuffs a huge forkful of the delicious waffles in her mouth. After a hearty breakfast, Abby and Peter head over to his mom's place to check out the venue. Mrs. Clark, to Abby's discomfort, vividly remembers everything that went wrong with their wedding, and keeps poking at the uncomfortable topic of their wedding disaster. As she leaves, Abby loudly realizes that Peter's mom officially hates her. Peter assures her that is not true, she just doesn't understand why they broke up. Abby denies that, saying Peter knows why. She turns around to face him with a frustrated look, but refuses when Peter suggests that perhaps they should talk about it. On the other end, Emily returns home after a tiring shift at the hospital. She is looking forward to taking a nap before her midnight shift, but unfortunately, Dan has boxes of belongings strewn all over the bed, as well as the spare room. Emily waves it off, they need to make room for each other, since they are married. Dan promises to keep it down, but startles Emily, who has resorted to napping on the couch. Exasperated, Emily rolls over to try and get some rest. Abby and Peter continue the preps for the upcoming wedding of Dan and Emily. As they head out of a shop, the shopkeeper rushes over with the receipt they forgot at the counter, and claims how nice it is to see a couple working on their wedding together. Abby and Peter laugh awkwardly, denying that they are a couple. Peter realizes that he has to get to work, and they will pick up where they left off the next morning. He is adamant to accompany Abby through every step of this wedding prep. A frustrated Abby walks off as Peter takes his leave, smirking. At home, Abby continues to confirm the wedding technicalities with vendors over the phone. When her parents inquire whether she should be taking these decisions without Peter, she says it's better this way. Her situation with Peter is quite complicated. As she moves to the living room with her work, she catches sight of a book on the bookshelf. It is her school yearbook. She comes across a photo of her and Peter, labeled as the cutest couple, smiling softly. At the office, Taylor is in a frenzy. She cannot seem to figure out how not to mess up Sandy's do-over wedding, and shares her concerns with Kyle, who walks in at that moment. Kyle suggests that she should plan the do-over as the exact opposite of what Sandy originally had for her wedding. Taylor is elated with this brilliant suggestion, and pulls Kyle into a hug. He tries to compose himself as Taylor gets back to work, gleaming with a new perspective. As the day proceeds, Peter gets a call from Abby, informing him that she is headed to the florist's immediately. They originally had plans to meet up that afternoon, but Abby is changing it up. Peter, flustered by the sudden change in schedule, rushes to join her. Dan assures him that he will handle the shop, and Peter should take his time. As Peter reaches the florist, Abby walks out, happily informing him that she got the price cut down by half. She continues to tell him that she is perfectly capable of handling this do-over on her own, when she receives a call from a very tired Emily. She slept on the couch, and now her back is sore. She asks her to pick up her veil, which just came in. Abby agrees and hangs up, unable to shake the feeling that something is wrong. Peter's continued pestering is not helping, and Abby loses her cool. She tosses her stuff in the car and faces him angrily, finally confronting him. He was the one who told her to go to Los Angeles. Peter does not understand why she is so angry, since she was the one who canceled their wedding. Abby retaliates, saying there was no other option, since she wanted the wedding of her dreams and the circumstances of that day had not allowed it. Peter snaps that she was the one who backed off and took the internship in Los Angeles after their wedding was postponed. Abby reminds him of his cutting words, not to bother coming back if she took the internship. Peter scoffs that they both knew she wasn't coming back anyway. He leaves angrily, leaving a speechless Abby behind. While this unfolds, Taylor successfully gets Sandy on board with her new plans for her wedding do-over. As night rolls in, Emily gets home to Dan enjoying a casserole, courtesy of his mother. Emily is grateful for the help and sits down for a meal when Mrs. Clark tells her the secret to her delicious casserole: bacon. Emily pauses, looking at Dan, who completely forgot to tell his mom that Emily no longer eats meat. She puts down her fork and smiles, opting for a salad instead. Dan takes her plate and eats her helping. Abby is in her room, reminiscing over her wedding dress in her closet, when another sharp tap on her window announces that Peter is downstairs. She heads out to talk to him. They resolve their little fight and make a truce to be friends again. The next day, Emily and Mrs. Clark wait for Dan to meet them for their afternoon reservation for lunch, when he says he is needed back at the shop, since Peter is unavailable. Emily is disappointed, since it's her one afternoon off before the wedding, but she knows there is no other option. Abby and Peter continue their wedding preps, successfully securing the right flowers from their neighbor. As they drive off, the two discuss their lives with each other. Neither one of them has found anyone worth spending a life with. This is the first time the two share their vulnerabilities, after having their guard up throughout their business interactions. As they drive, Peter asks Abby to pull over. They find themselves in the spot where Peter proposed to Abby to marry him. The two recall fond memories of their conversations when Emily calls Abby, in a total bridal meltdown. Their sentimental moment is cut short as they head over to Emily's, who reveals the disaster of a bridal dress to Abby. Emily tells her it's not just the dress. She feels as though she and Dan are drifting apart, after that one year that Dan was away in the military. Abby urges her to talk to him and share what she wants in her life with him. She succeeds in comforting Emily, but it's short-lived, as the disaster dress brings another onset of fresh tears. Meanwhile, Taylor maps out the nitty-gritty details of Sandy's do-over wedding at the office. She asks Sandy to try out a dress that is very different from what she wore at her original wedding. Sandy is reluctant, but agrees to try it on. Meanwhile, Kyle walks in and Taylor nervously confides in him. He comforts her by suggesting she should explain to Sandy why she chose that specific dress for her. Taylor takes his advice and succeeds in getting Sandy to love the dress. Back at home, Abby receives a call from Peter asking for an update on Emily, and also to invite her and her parents to his house for a barbecue, courtesy of his mother. It is just like old times, with the two families laughing and joking around, amidst good food and drinks on a sunny afternoon. Abby arrives with a box of Bonnie's butter tarts and heads inside the house, led by Peter, to find a tray. In the kitchen, Emily compliments Abby's dress. Peter does too, and easily differentiates between this one and the one she wore when he proposed to her. Abby is surprised that he remembers, and the two share a deep eye contact. He urges Abby to follow him, as he wants to show her something. Peter leads her to the backyard of the house, where he reveals the beautiful altar that he has been working on for Emily and Dan's wedding. Abby assures him that Emily will love it. Peter admits that it has been great to have her back in town. Abby smiles and reveals that she may stay another couple of weeks. She didn't realize how much she missed being back home, and she could use a vacation. Their eye contact deepens as Peter slightly leans in. But Abby interrupts the moment abruptly, not ready to face whatever is about to happen between them. Trying to recover from the failed attempt to kiss her, Peter agrees, and they rejoin the party. It is a day filled with delicious food and laughter. Once the partying is over, Abby is back at home in her room, scrolling through potential replacement wedding dresses for Emily. She pauses for a moment, and suddenly pulls out her wedding dress from her closet, carrying it down to the dining table. Coming to a decision, she calls Emily. On the other hand, Dan gets back home as Emily is leaving to go to Abby's. She gives curt responses to Dan, who then prompts her to tell him what's going on. Emily admits that they seem to have forgotten the little details that made them so special together. She urges him to find those little details before silently walking out, leaving Dan confused. At the office, Taylor finds out that the deposit she sent out for Sandy's wedding bounced for some reason. She realizes that she has made a grave error. In the meantime, Abby shows Emily her wedding dress and tells her that she wants Emily to take it. The two are interrupted by a knock on Abby's door, revealing Dan. He walks in and takes out a beautiful brand new wedding dress for Emily, the same one that she loved before. Emily is rendered speechless. Dan tells her that they are still readjusting. But they will make it, because this is forever. The two embrace each other happily. Emily tells Dan that she loves him, and kisses him warmly. Abby joins their happy moment, pulling them into a group hug. It is a day before the wedding, and Peter and Abby are putting their final touches to the wedding altar. Abby shares how she almost gave her wedding dress to Emily. Peter is glad to know she didn't. He also feels glad that she is staying for longer. The two look deeply at each other and cannot seem to deny their feelings any longer. They lean in for a kiss, wrapping their arms around each other. Abby pulls away to inform Peter that perhaps it is bad luck to kiss underneath someone else's bower, and they laugh together, agreeing to keep this a secret. While things patch up for Abby, they seem to fall apart for Taylor, who informs Sandy that they lost the museum where they were supposed to host Sandy's do-over wedding. Sandy demands to speak to Abby in person and storms out. On the flip side, Dan presents his wedding gift to Emily, a beautifully crafted wooden cupboard. Taylor informs Abby of the situation with Sandy. Abby is disappointed she won't be staying longer and asks Taylor to schedule a meeting with the client. She will head back to Los Angeles right after the wedding. Taylor thinks she may be getting fired. That evening, Peter comes over to Abby's house to inform her of the plan for the wedding day, when he finds out that she will not be staying after all. The two have a heated argument, where they bring back hurtful memories from the past. Abby tells Peter that he still does not support her dreams, and storms back into the house. She confides in her mom, who admits that earlier, Abby was too young to get into such a major commitment. Perhaps it's time she and Peter sat down and talked about it. On the other end, Dan knocks some sense into Peter as well. He tells him that Peter needs to admit he was wrong to not realize that Abby needed to pursue her career first, and that perhaps it is time to get off his high horse and compromise to get what he wants. Meanwhile, Taylor has the brilliant idea to convert Kyle's brother's library and coffee shop into the ideal location for Sandy's do-over. Abby and Peter finally talk about what went wrong in their relationship. They both admit that they were wrong. Abby wanted to leave, and Peter wanted her to stay. None of them took the other's hopes and dreams into account. Peter promises her that from now on, he will support her in whatever she decides to do. Abby, relieved beyond words, falls into his arms as he hugs her tightly. As she walks back home, she receives a call from Taylor, informing her that the situation with the do-over is settled, and Abby can stay in her hometown for longer. It is finally the wedding day. It is a beautiful ceremony. Emily looks breathtaking as a bride, and everything goes perfectly. After the ceremony, Peter confides in his mother about Abby leaving. He is scared, and she sees it. His mom comforts him, reminding him that he controls his life. He can do what he wants with it. As the wedding celebrations go on into the night, Peter grabs Abby to speak with her. She tells him she wants to spend her vacations with him, and to her surprise, he reveals that he wants to move to Los Angeles with her. They are ready to commit, and it is evident in the euphoria behind their eyes. Peter also reveals that he is the mystery flower sender. In the city, Taylor finally asks Kyle out to dinner. 3 months in, with business running as per usual, Peter proposes to Abby, this time for a wedding that will definitely happen. Elated, she accepts, and the two embrace each other, ready to start the new chapter of their lives together.